What's up guys, it's Punchy and I got a question for you. So the wind-up bell, when's the last time you saw it in combat and was it actually effective? I'm not too sure myself, but after some investigation, I think I discovered some tech that makes this bell much better. The wind-up bell lets players prep their next attack in order to buff up the next hit and do more damage while ragdolling the other players. Sometimes the wind-up damage is doubled or increased and sometimes it's a bit lower, but it's hard to expect. So the wind-up speed and damage both seem to vary per weapon and bell variant, but it's a fairly straightforward resonance that hits hard and works as intended. Well, there's a few other things that you can do using this bell. First off, hitting any player with the wind-up bell will ragdoll them when it normally would not, and this can be solid if you want to confirm secondary mantras or combos that would not normally be true. Secondly, no matter how much posture an enemy has, I tested this with like 100,000, a wind-up attack will block break instantly, so yeah, it always guard breaks. The final extra attribute that wind-up has, it lets you execute knocked players with certain weapons at certain charges. When executing somebody on the floor using wind-up, you must have a charged up wind-up to 3 or 4 charges, and you can easily tell since your yellow particles turn red. Keep in mind though that you cannot get an execution wind-up charged if you are out of combat because that limits you to 2 charges instead of 3 or 4. So today's bell focus is gonna be on the wind-up execution and a few different weapons that you can snipe players from range using these crits. Surprisingly, testing wind-up was very inconsistent because a lot of different weapons, interact strangely with this resonance that I'm using. Stuff like Just Kurita's critical attack and Way of Neve's crit won't explode the target, while Legion Kata critical works as intended, so this is just one example, but I do want to say that wind-up does not work consistently, and you'll need to experiment around with the specific weapon. Using range crits and wind-up can execute players from a distance. NPCs interact differently so they can still explode without being knocked, but players have to be knocked in order for wind-up to kill them. First off, using the Blood-Tide Trident, the new Hollow-Tide weapon, this weapon is the best possible use of the ranged explosion. The crit is mouse aim with super far range, allowing you to snipe players with wind-up and pick up some free kills too. The same exact thing applies to the Flare Blood commas, and the critical explosion will activate on knocked players and blow them up with the resonance. Ranged weapons like rifles have a very hard time executing knocked players, but they can activate wind-up. So for example, Peacemaker M1s and criticals can hit a standing target, but against knocked enemies, the vertical hitbox seems to be too small. The Storm's Eye won't even activate wind-up explosion using the crit, which is honestly a shame, but other handguns like the revolver can activate wind-up using bullets, but the only way to execute a knocked player will be an aerial shot that's aiming down, and I find it weird that they cannot hit down targets, but it's pretty strong regardless. Another weird interaction is with the Curved Blade of Wind's critical. So the projectile and I guess the rushdown crits can activate wind-up, but in no situation will they actually execute down players. Basic running attacks can also apply wind-up explosion, and they execute players that are knocked. I was honestly happy to see that Silent Heart's Vengeful Pursuit, the kick thing, it's not working. This would be kind of ridiculous if a single, almost unreactable move ragdolled and did wind-up damage, so I guess that's okay. But upon this, Monikati is very powerful with wind-up and its execution. First off, yeah, it does explode knocked players with this instant teleport, which is honestly unpreventable, but a normal hit is also powerful. The main drawback to Monikati is if you parry the entire string, it makes it useless, so with wind-up, if the first explosion hits, Monikati ragdolls players and forces them to eat the rest of the uppercut slashes. It's pretty cool and worth checking out. Give Sniper wind-up a try to steal some kills or push around players from a distance, but remember, you must be in combat to execute those knocked players. Anyway, that's all for right now, and if you want more tech like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Let's hit 70k by the end of this year. So thanks again, it's Punchin' time.